Mama Cass Elliot had a stunning voice and a lifelong struggle with her weight. Guess which one people wanted to talk about? The one that killed her at the age of 33. Cass Elliot was a unique child. According to The Guardian, she once explained, "I've been fat since I was 7, and being fat sets you apart." But with a deep love of music and performing fueling her, Elliot turned what most saw as a handicap into a strength, at least outwardly. Elliot grew up in Baltimore, where her parents worked at an ice cream fountain and ran a lunch wagon. They loved opera, and Elliot's mother, who was once a professional singer, played piano. As a kid, Elliot took piano lessons and learned to play guitar. In high school, she sang in the choir and appeared in school plays.
Cass was a star. She was a star from the time she was 2 years old. She'd be entertaining on the bus.
After high school, Elliot went to New York to act in musicals. But when she lost a big job to another rising star, Barbra Streisand, she decided to pursue a singing career. Elliot oozed style. According to Rolling Stone, her former manager, Bobby Roberts, remembered, "She was overweight, but she carried it off like she was a beauty queen." Inside, however, Elliot was uncomfortable with her appearance.
She always seemed to go for the guy that didn't quite want her, almost as if to confirm this view that she had of herself.
In 1969, she wrote a revealing article for Good Housekeeping, confessing that her weight was an excuse so that she wouldn't have to compete with other women. Cass Elliot was playing with folk rock band The Mugwumps, where she met fellow musician Danny Doherty. She was attracted to Doherty, but he claimed he couldn't deal with the weight.
She's madly in love with Danny, all of her life. From the time she met him, she just absolutely adored Danny.
However, he did introduce Cass to John and Michelle Phillips. The three were forming a band, and Elliot asked to join. The problem was nobody could picture someone of Elliot's size performing next to the petite Phillips. John Phillips in particular believed Elliot's appearance would turn off audiences. But that didn't stop Elliot. She was determined to join the band and followed them wherever they went. Elliot was willing to do anything, from waitressing at the nightclub where they were playing.
She was a horrible waitress.
To rehearsing with them while they were on break. Michelle recalled to Rolling Stone, "We'd say, 'Okay, Cass, serve some drinks, we're going on stage.'"
And she swallowed a lot of pride and a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of rejection. Yeah, and she stayed.
When the band was kicked off of St. Thomas for drugging, they wound up with no money and showed up at Elliot's Los Angeles home. Only then was she allowed to join the group. They became the Mamas and the Papas, and she became known as Mama Cass. Cass Elliot had followed the band to St. Thomas, where, according to John Phillips, she got hit on the head by a falling pipe.
It was a mild concussion, not severe, but moderate, I would say, moderate concussion.
Phillips claimed the injury expanded her range, allowing her to suddenly hit higher notes. Not true, or even possible. Why would John make that up? Michelle's brother, Russell Gilliam, believed John didn't want the public to know Elliot had been forced to trek after the band for a year in hopes they would hire her. Nor did he want it known that he told Powerhouse Elliot she was too fat to sing with them. Elliot went along with the story to save face. She told Rolling Stone, "I had a concussion and went to the hospital. I had a bad headache for about 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, I was singing higher. It's true, honest to God." The Mamas and the Papas were typical musicians of the 1960s. John Phillips told Rolling Stone, "The first acid trip any of us ever took, we took together. It wouldn't be the last." Michelle Phillips recalled one working trip to the Virgin Islands. She told the Baltimore Sun that the group had limited their drug use to psychedelics and alcohol. There was no cocaine around, thank God. We would have gotten nothing done. As reported by The Atlantic, an interviewer wrote, "Before they hit the big time, the group dropped acid, smoked dope, and drank. After they hit the big time, the group dropped acid, smoked dope, and drank." There were also heartbreaks. Michelle messed around with Denny Doherty, which didn't sit well with Elliot. She confronted Michelle.
She said to me, you can have any man you want. Why take the man that I love?"
Somehow Cass was able to forgive her bandmate. Michelle would eventually have affairs with Gene Clark of the Byrds, as well as all of John's best friends, according to Vanity Fair. Cass Elliot's love life was problematic. Not only did Denny Doherty spurn her advances, so did a drug smuggler named Pick Dawson, who claimed to fear that if he got involved with Elliot, he'd cheat on her. In 1967, Elliot was arrested. Upon the band's arrival in London, she was charged with skipping out on a hotel bill and stealing a set of sheets during a previous visit. But there was more to the story. According to Musicaholics, UK police were concerned about Elliot's relationship with Pick Dawson. Luckily, the band got wind of the impending arrest and dumped their drugs. Elliot spent a night in jail, but the charges were dropped. Cass Elliott's first husband was guitarist and former bandmate Jim Hendrix. They married in 1963 and split by 1967. Later that year, Elliott gave birth to her only child, daughter Owen. She kept both her pregnancy and the name of Owen's father a secret. In an interview with Next Tribe, Owen said, "She wanted me more than anything else in the world. She told people that. She named me Owen because I was her own. She was responsible for 100% of my welfare."
Are you a good mother?
Oh, yes. Is that proper to say?
Elliott remained close to her daughter and was uneasy when Owen got too close to her nannies. When Elliott died, Owen was just 7. Elliott's sister, Leah Kunkel, took in her niece and raised her. By 1968, John and Michelle's marriage was falling apart, and Cass worried the band was losing focus. John Phillips admitted to Rolling Stone, "Cass's idea of show business was really show business. We just wanted to f*** around, have a good time." The band assured viewers on The Ed Sullivan Show that they weren't breaking up, but the group was done. For Elliott, it was a new beginning. She told Rolling Stone about the artists who hung out at her house on any given day, including Eric Clapton, David Crosby, Joni Mitchell, and Stephen Stills. She said, "Music happens in my house, and that pleases me."
My mom's home was really the center of a lot of happenings in Laurel Canyon.
Soon, a tragedy would throw her into the spotlight in a terrible way. In 1969, Charles Manson and his followers notoriously murdered pregnant actress Sharon Tate and her friends in Los Angeles. It was soon revealed that Manson's party circuit had previously included Cass Elliott's home. Manson had attended at least one of Elliott's popular celebrity parties, and Manson's bus was frequently seen parked at John and Michelle Phillips' house. Tate was friends with both Elliott and Michelle, and according to The Atlantic, Denny Doherty had planned to go to Tate's house the night of the murders but didn't make it. John Phillips blamed Elliott for the tragedy. In his book about Sharon Tate, Ed Sanders quotes Elliott as saying, "John blamed me for bringing killers into our group, blamed me for Sharon's death, and said police were going to arrest me as an accomplice. Not only that, he convinced her she would be murdered next." Police got wind of this during their investigation. In 1970, the San Antonio Express reported that both Elliott and John Phillips were subpoenaed to testify in Manson's defense. They never appeared to have been summoned, however. Cass Elliott had a taste of solo stardom with her 1968 hit, Dream a Little Dream of Me. Her solo album of the same name secured her a 3-week booking at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Elliott's contract stipulated she be allowed to bring Owen, but dividing time between Owen and rehearsals was grueling. By the time she took the stage on opening night, with Sammy Davis Jr. and Jimi Hendrix in the audience, Elliott had a raging fever. Her show closed after just 2 performances. In 1969, Elliott released her next album, Bubblegum, Lemonade, and Something for Mama. But she struggled to overcome the stigma of being a single mother. She recorded a reunion album with the Mamas and the Papas, but when it fell flat, Elliott left the band behind forever. In 1971, she married Baron Donald von Wiedemann. They were divorced by the end of the year. According to Encyclopedia, Cass Elliott once said of her weight, "I simply learned that's the way I am, and so I live with it." But in 1969, she went on a 7-month-long crash diet that consisted of fasting 4 days a week. It gave her acute tonsillitis, hemorrhaging vocal cords, mononucleosis, and a dangerous case of hepatitis that cost her over $250,000 in lost earnings. Elliott also grappled with the infamous Mama Cass nickname she'd earned with the Mamas and the Papas. In a 1973 Tonight Show appearance, she announced that her upcoming television special and next album would both be titled, "Don't Call Me Mama Anymore."
And I would like to, to have a last name like a real person.
Elliott continued to diet to such an extent that she passed out backstage before another Tonight Show appearance. On an appearance on The Mike Douglas Show, Cass explained that she hadn't eaten all day prior to Johnny Carson.
I had the vapors. Remember in the old days, people used to get the vapors and take to the beds with a compress.
Douglas then coerced her into talking about her love for Tasty Cake cupcakes.
This is the continuing dramatic saga of Cass Elliott and the giant Tasty Cake that devoured the Hollywood Hills.
On July 30th, 1974, Cass Elliott died following a concert in London. Her secretary, Dot McLeod, found the star propped up in her double bed where she was staying. McLeod claimed a ham sandwich lay nearby. Newspapers amplified the story, reporting that the singer had choked on the sandwich.
It's, gravy for the media to go, "Oh, look, the fat lady died of eating."
Other bizarre stories about Elliott's death involved an FBI plot, choking on her own vomit, and death during childbirth while having the love child of John Lennon. In reality, the postmortem pathology confirmed that there were no drugs or alcohol in the singer's system and that she had apparently eaten very little during her last hours. As the world wondered what happened, Elliott's body was shipped back to California. She was buried in Mount Sinai Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills, with her family, including Owen, in attendance. When she died on July 30th, 1974, Elliott had just finished a 2-week stint at the London Palladium. On Sunday, July 28th, she went to a party hosted by Mick Jagger but didn't drink and left early. The apartment she was staying in was owned by singer Harry Nilsson. Also staying there was Elliott's road manager, George Caldwell. Several people had been in and out of the apartment during the day on July 29th, but they all assumed Elliott was sleeping. Sue Cameron, then working for The Hollywood Reporter, told People that she called Elliott's apartment upon hearing news of her death. The phone was answered by the singer's manager, Alan Carr, who frantically instructed Cameron to write that Elliott died by choking on the ham sandwich sitting on the nightstand. In truth, the official autopsy report revealed that Elliott had actually died from fatty myocardial degeneration due to obesity. Carr, however, thanked Cameron for writing the sandwich story. He explained, "I was trying to save her reputation."
I would say that the world's in terrible shape, but I'm afraid the world would say, look who's talking.
The ham sandwich story became the lie that wouldn't die. As recently as 2020, Cameron told People, "I never thought it would last as long as it has." In 2022, Owen recalled watching old videos of her mother. She told Next Tribe how she used to cringe with pain seeing people make what were supposed to be friendly, overweight jokes about her mom right to her face. In 2011, Elliott's brother and sister, Joseph Cohen and Leah Kunkel, filed suit against the singer's estate, which had been awarded to Owen. At issue was Elliott's will, allegedly drawn up in 1967, then suppressed after her death in 1974 by the law firm of Mitchell, Silberberg, and Knupp. The firm was accused of telling Elliott's mother, Bess Cohen, that there was no will, and failing to reveal that it had a legal relationship with the bank that was the largest claimant to the estate. If you are struggling with an eating disorder or know someone who is, help is available. Visit the National Eating Disorders Association website or contact NEDA's live helpline at 1-800-931-2237. You can also receive 24/7 crisis support via text. Send NEDA to 741-741.